Fluoride. Dentists say that drinking it can protect your teeth against cavities. Cities and towns all across the world actually dump it into the water supply, hoping to indiscriminately medicate the population through their tap water faucets. The official story on fluoride sounds wonderful. Drink the stuff and you won't get cavities, we're told. It's a nice story. But there's another side to this story, the side you're never told. And it starts with the astonishing but verifiable fact that nearly all the fluoride dripped into municipal water supplies isn't naturally occurring fluoride at all. In fact, it's actually a combination of hexafluorosilicic acid and sodium silicofluoride. These two chemicals are considered highly toxic by the EPA. They're actually classified as hazardous waste, and when packaged for transportation, they must be labeled as poison and handled by workers wearing industrial safety gear. So, what are hexafluorosilicic acid and sodium silicofluoride, and where do they come from? That's the part of this story that you probably won't believe. That is, not until you check it out for yourself. Because the more you look into the mythology of fluoride, the more bizarre this story becomes. And this
they're supposed to uphold the law. They're not over the law.
Tonight, an Eyewitness News exclusive. Caught on camera, NYPD officers push a teenager and then slam him to the ground. Is this a case of excessive force? And good evening to you at 6 o'clock. I'm Liz Chow.
And I'm Bill Ritter. A simple shopping trip to a neighborhood deli turning into a nightmare for a 19-year-old who spent the night in jail for allegedly riding his bike on the sidewalk. Now his family is demanding action.
Eyewitness News reporter Sandra Bookman is in the Westchester Square section of the Bronx with her exclusive story. Sandra.
The father and son here certainly believe police went too far. They say what began on the sidewalk outside that deli as a simple warning about riding a bicycle on the sidewalk escalated into police brutality inside the store.
And I'm so hurt because it's the police officers. They're supposed to be here to help us.
Jorge Cartagena Jr. is still traumatized by what he and his father call a beating at the hands of police. The encounter captured by surveillance camera in a Bronx deli last Friday night. On the tape, you see the 19-year-old approach the counter as one officer prepares to leave. The two apparently exchange words, and that's when the officer grabs the teen, flinging him against the wall, and then with the aid of his partner, to the floor to be cuffed and arrested.
He was slamming my head against the floor over and over.
Jorge says he was taken first to the 45th Precinct, then to Central Booking, and released more than 24 hours later without being charged, though he was issued a summons for biking on the sidewalk. His father calls it excessive force.
I'm very angry. I'll be honest, I want to beat the crap out of the cop.
Jorge Sr. says seeing the bruises and scratches on his son's face and body and watching the surveillance video led him to file a complaint against the officers. And the NYPD confirms Internal Affairs is investigating the incident.
I want him to be reprimanded for it.
What Jorge Jr. wants is to believe in the police again.
People were supposed to call these guys for help and to see what they did. If it was a regular person, that would have been assault.
Now, the 19-year-old was taken to the hospital. There were no broken bones, but numerous cuts and bruises all over his body. Ironically, both the 19-year-old and his father told us today he wants to be a police officer. He says after this incident, he certainly plans to be a different kind of cop. Again, the NYPD confirms the Internal Affairs is investigating. We're live tonight in the Westchester Square section of the...
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Global Government News. Today is Tuesday, March 1st, 2011, and I'm Darko. Welcome to Global Government News. This is my website, www.ggnonline.com. That's ggnonline.com. There's a news archive with all news videos for the last year or so. And there was a poll that just closed, and it was, if you didn't know already, what are the chances of the U.S. government actually shutting down in the next month? And originally it was will never happen. as the biggest percentage, but the winner is by 33% and 21 votes. Very likely that the government will shut down. There was an article that came out recently, just yesterday, that said that it's unlikely that the government will shut down. I think it's unlikely, but also you never know, right? It could be like the new bank runs where they just close the ATMs or cut off access to the ATMs and being able to withdraw money. So same thing. Okay, we're going to start off with some eugenics news, and we're going to cover a variety of news, including what's going on in the Middle East. We'll cover eugenics, we'll cover the economy, and then we'll cover some space stuff. It says in science, basically science, clone milk meat may soon hit UK store shelves. Recent statements made by UK Minister of State for Agriculture and Food, Jim Pace, seem to suggest that Britons may soon be eating clone milk and meat, and they most likely will not even be aware of it. And they haven't been because they've already had it in their food supply, and they just got busted, so now they have to actually come out and say they're doing it. It says, if Pace's suggestion that, quote, there should be no restrictions on the use of offspring of cloned animals for food is any indicator of UK food policy direction, cloned animal products could soon show up unlabeled on grocery store shelves, much like GMO food, right? And it says here, mouse, pig, and superfish seek approval for human consumption. The federal government is refusing to say whether it is close to approving genetically modified animals for human consumption, but if they do, you may never know it again. So you can go in there and check that out. Like all my videos, the links will be posted. This next one up is public has doubts over modified food. Well, I wonder why, because, well, it causes what, stomach, gastrointestinal problems, and it causes you to be sterile. And it says here, nearly 70% of Chinese consumers in a recent survey expressed objections to genetically modified rice. And I covered this before. This is from the 23rd, but it just goes along with the GMO. It says here, shoppers weary of GM foods find they're everywhere, right? As more consumers become concerned by genetically modified foods, they find that they're everywhere. And they've been slowly creeping into our food supply since the early 90s, and we're up to about 70% right now of our food supply being genetically modified. And it says here, you may not want to eat genetically engineered foods. Chances are you were eating them anyways. So it says most corn, soybean, and cotton grown in the U.S. has been genetically modified to resist pesticides or insects, and corn and soy are common food ingredients. Talking about Monsanto's product. Pesticides on fruit and vegetables are wrecking men's fertility. Oh, so there you go, guys, right? There you go. That's why we call it eugenics, right? Because you got these old men and these old, rich, wealthy men eating organic meat and have big lands and aren't drinking fluoridated water, and this is for us. This is for us. And they get out and they have their little meetings, their little gatherings where they talk about how there's too many people on the planet, and they're not talking about fantasy and what they can do 100 years down the road. They're doing it now, and they've been doing it for at least hundreds of years. So you just have to be aware of it because it's being carried out on you on a daily basis. Much like the high fructose corn syrup, the FDA just changed the regulations and the labeling restrictions and that. So now high fructose corn syrup could be labeled as corn syrup, which is a flat out, how could you say it, not really false advertising, but it's a lie. They're lying because corn syrup is a natural ingredient. But they're going to call high fructose corn syrup, corn sugar, and high fructose corn syrup along with one other label. So you have to keep your eye on it. And it says several states consider loosening raw milk restrictions as FDA tries to tighten them. So you can check that out. It says here, Britain set to okay milk meat from offspring of cloned animals. Then popular painkiller could cause patients to commit suicide. As popular and powerful prescription painkiller may be causing people to kill themselves, according to a study conducted by researchers from the Pain Clinic at Ruhr University in Germany. It says here, AP impact past medical testing on humans revealed. This was all over the Yahoo, and just showing the mainstream that that the eugenics has been carried out. And it says here, shocking as it may seem, shocking, isn't it, guys? Isn't it shocking that U.S. government doctors once thought it was fine to experiment on disabled people and prison inmates? Well, they're still doing it, and they expanded it. I mean, they're experimenting on the human population. I mean, what the hell do you think this is? They're experimenting on you. First they try it in Africa. First they trial it in Africa, and they go there and they give these poor people some money, some cash, and they carry out research on these poor people. And if they die, they die, and nobody cares, because in Africa your life is worth dirt, and here in the United States it's worth just a little bit more than dirt. In the eyes of the powers that be and these big corporations, pharmaceutical and agricultural companies. And so, yeah, they're carried out research on you. So once it passes the initial trials, i.e. it doesn't kill anybody in Africa, then they bring it over to here. And it doesn't mean that it's safe. It just means that they don't know long term what it's going to do. So you go ahead and pop your pills and see what happens. You could be a guinea pig. But says such experiments included giving hepatitis to mental patients in Connecticut. What do you think that was? That was eugenics, doing that to mental patients. Squirting a pandemic flu virus up the noses of prisoners in Maryland, and injecting cancer cells into chronically ill people at a New York hospital. And says much of this horrific history is 40 to 80 years old, but it is the backdrop for a meeting in Washington this week. Bioethics, a presidential bioethics commission. And guys, what do you think? I got this from Alan Watt, because the guy's freaking smart as hell, right? Bioethics is eugenics. It's a new term for eugenics. What is a new term for eugenics? Planned Parenthood, and all these other measures. So it's they just basically went and changed the whole face of eugenics because, well, Hitler gave him a bad name, right? It says 5 proposals to combat global warming that should make us all cringe. And we go down here, and of course, you have taxes to international bankers, talking about a carbon tax, just like Australia is having shoved down their throat right now, although I don't think the Australians are going to allow that. They seem to be fighting it pretty fiercely, especially after they're going to get hit with a levy tax. One-child policies, that's another way. And then Geo-Engineering, that's i.e. Weather modification, aerosol spraying of chemicals and nanoparticles, which they are already doing, even though they're calling for it, they're already doing. And one-child policies, they have it in China, and they are the model for the rest of the world. Eventually, we will have one-child policies, and you will have to go to the state in order to breed. And eventually, it'll be to where two people can't even breed themselves. They have to go to the state and have it done in a lab. So. And of course, that's to make the perfect human, right? No, that's to make you so that you only serve your purpose, which is to be a plumber, and that's it. And they will purposely kill brain cells so that you won't be able to really think any more than what you're supposed to do, right? There's food rationing, which you're already talking about doing. They're rationing electricity because of the green policies that are going on with coal-fired power plants under the Obama administration. They've been having blackouts, and eventually they'll have scheduled blackouts, which is part of rationing. And UK, the London Telegraph, actually proposed food rationing in an article, in a mainstream article, talking about food rationing because of the growing population, nuclear war, so that's another way. So you can go in there and check that out. U.S. Geo-Engineering budget exceeds billions, so you can go in there and check that one out. Just thought I'd post a link. It's a little bit of an older article. Symptoms resulting from chemtrail spraying. So, and this one too is a little bit older, but it says here the overview is a partial list of health problems reported by private citizens of chemtrail researchers. Nose and lung bleeds, and it says here asthma and allergies, allergic, I'm not going to pronounce that, fungus on the lungs in infants and adults, flu, bronchitis, pneumonia, upper respiratory problems, wheezing, dry cough, pulmonary problems, death from black mold, arthritis-like symptoms, muscular pain, gastrointestinal distress, bladder and yeast infections, bedwetting, and it's all not just any age, so that's what it's stressing, any age, young and old, extreme fatigue, ringing in the ears, maybe harp, eye problems, dry cracking skin, mental confusion. And I went out looking at some towers with a friend of mine just a couple days ago, and man, it seems like every one of those towers, they're not really, I don't know if they're Wi-Fi towers, I don't know what the hell they are. I'm theorizing that they're specifically for weather modification and communication, defense applications. But after being around a couple of them for a couple minutes, I got dizzy, confused, and a queasy stomach. This is GGN, I'm Dark.